Hi, good evening, everyone. Uh, my name is Anurag Tiwari. Um, I come from my industrial background is in supply chains, but then I moved to academia. I have stayed around 15 years in England and did my research there in complex systems. So my you may say that my research and interest is in how AI can help us solve information systems related problems, how it can facilitate those things. And there are some other areas like how AI should be logically used and what kind of AI should we adopt. Yeah. So when May approached, we wanted to we wanted to do something with the Chamber of Commerce. I said, okay, I'll give it a try. It's a short window, but I'll try and at least make it a thought-provoking session. Yeah. So hopefully, very short window to talk about a lot of tools, but I would like to understand more what you are aspiring for, what are your expectations, and maybe we can continue the conversation later on. Yeah. So that's the idea here. Uh, Professor Mugi, would I like if he could just introduce himself?
Professor Murgi is our visiting assistant professor with accounting, our Master's of Science in Accounting program. So, Dr. Murgi.
Yeah, I'm trained as an economist. So I got a PhD from Penn. Then I was for 11 years in the Midwest. So after experiencing places in India which have three seasons, hot, hotter, hottest, I've lived in Minneapolis, which is three seasons, cold, colder, coldest. But then I spent 25 years in the East Coast, New Jersey, New York. I came here in the middle of the pandemic. I liked it, so I asked him.
That's great.
Thank you, Dr. Mugi. So when it was asked to me to do this session, I do a lot of machine learning algorithms. I do a lot of data analytics driven AI. That is my core area that I do. Venturing into large language models, but not yet completely. So that is the area that I am into. And then I thought that let's start with a brief understanding of what is your understanding of AI. What do you think AI can do for you? Yeah. So what I've done is I've sectioned this presentation into a few slides. What you should know about AI, a brief overview of at a higher level overview of that, why you should use it, what aspects of AI are useful, and how should you decide where actually to implement it and where not to implement it. So this is something for small businesses when it comes uh, for choosing a tool, it has to make a return on investment. So and there are thousands of tools out there. So you have to be very, very careful what you choose for. Yeah. And then where can you apply it and how to apply it. So I looked at the list that she's my make circulated, and in that I saw which businesses are there. So I took an example from a retail outlet and see if it works. But we can discuss specific examples that might interest you. Yeah. So let's start with a small inventory of things that you are aware of about AI. So four questions. Please scan this QR code and yeah, yeah, you could get it from the screen. Yeah. So it might ask you to register if you've not done this before, but then you can go ahead with the answers. Yeah. Did it go through? May, did you? Yeah. I did it work with the pic photo? It's working now. Yeah. We had to change it once we reached here. We realized that the one that I had was restricted to Europe students, so I could not use that. So May helped me with a new one. Yeah. No. So yeah, pick an account. So just pick an account because it will let you answer. So which account you would like to use? Has. May, but you did it with a personal account. Yeah, it should work. Yeah. If it does not, then I can just take an inventory. We are not many people here. Yeah. So that should be easy. Yeah. Just if you can just open the question. So don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah, just open the question here.
Sure.
Yeah, because we are only a few people here. So the first thing I would like to understand is that where do you think you're most likely to like improve your business? So among these functions, which areas do you think requires the most improvement or can have the most productive return for you? So
Sales and marketing.
sales and marketing, you would go with that, okay? Uh, anyone for customer service, operations, customer service, and operations time management? If okay, if I may understand what kind of so when you said customer service, what if you could just
Actually, for me, I think it's more like customer management.
Okay.
So, keeping track of customers, data that I have on them, in addition to just like contact information. Like I'm a jeweler, so I keep track of people's ring sizes and their preferences for lengths of neck. So, like having a story place.
all those data for a customer, and how many customers do you think you have in the number quantity?
I mean, I'd probably say I keep track right now of about 100.
100, yeah.
Yeah.
And the things might be updating and changing, so you need to track that as well. Okay, and if I might ask you, customer is something that really interests me.
Yeah, we have members actually who some have been with us since the early '90s,
Yeah.
and we help them with maintenance around the home, improvements, etc. And so, just more streamlined way to access their history. And it's one thing to have quick access to those initial conversations, but what actually happened,
Absolutely.
is usually a much larger file.
So in customer service or customer, you may say, oriented approach, you would like to have customer personas that we define. There's a whole way of creating customer personas. We can talk about that later on. But you could use basic AI tools and it can give you everything that you need about this by creating customer personas, and they can retain those personas, evolve them, and so on. For your instance, a 360-degree view of the customer will be great for you, just to know in a timeline vast what were your contact points, what were your handshakes, where they contacted you, how you responded, and that kind of matrix. So these are some tools you could probably write it on Word, on Excel, and ask a simple language model to do it for you, and they can do that. So there are many. Of course, a good solution would be a CRM, a small CRM, but do you need a CRM? Maybe you can get away with that just using a GPT. Yeah. So, yes.
I have no idea what you're referring to.
So when I say GPT, these are large language models like Chat GPT. Yeah. And they can help they can help you with a lot of tasks. We'll just have a word about it as we go forward. But if you have not used it, will I would like to know what you have used or what you know about AI in the next few questions. Yeah. So this is very much related what you want to improve. What are your pain points? Where do you think you really it really bothers you to spend a lot of unproductive time there? Among these, marketing, communication, design, or doing that, scheduling, managing inventory, managing employees. So any thoughts? Someone else like?
For me, would be, well, the first slide would be operations and time management,
Okay.
because I spend a lot of time on what I do, and marketing communications for me on question number 2.
Okay, so if you could just share the nature of your business.
I'm a recruiter for the maritime industry.
Okay.
So I get job orders from companies for ships captains, engineers.
Yeah.
In addition to shoreside jobs, right now I have a job for 4 teaching positions in Oregon at the maritime school.
So you have a huge scope of using AI for shortlisting, for creating. There's a huge scope that exists there. If you do it manually using matrices, you could you can put those metrics in AI and can help you. Let's have that conversation. But okay, so communication is definitely a problem because you have to create specific tailor-made communications, and really that is the area which can help. So it itself answers this next question, that what are your pain points, and maybe AI can help you that. Using your websites, how many of you have your own websites? Most of you have. Do you pay somebody to maintain it, do it, update it? So most of these things can be now done by you. You can just do it. You can just get away with your content writers. You can just use AI to generate that for you. And a regularly updated website is the best one because it goes up in the search engine optimization. So we can talk about that, how can that help? Because if you create a website once and you don't update the pages, the Google crawlers, the way it pushes your website up doesn't like work well. So regular updates makes a lot of a difference, and that is one of the key areas of search engine optimization. You can also, how many of you have Google Analytics built into your website? You have? Is no? So who clicked your website? At what time did they click it? Which pages they visited? What time they exited your website? From which page did they exit? Which pages they spend the most time on? These are absolutely fantastic insights. And that would give you an idea what pages work, what pages do not work. Yeah. So it's a very small code, and I don't have to tell you, you can just go and write it on ChatGPT. I want to do a Google Analytics, give me that code. It will give you that code, and you have to just embed it in every page of your website. And then in your Google account, you'll have absolutely every data available. And you can download that data and you don't have to look into it. Again, put it into a AI tool, the free ones, and it will tell you what's happening. You just say, this is my Google Analytics data. What do you think? Where do I need improvements? And it will tell you that. So the things that normally we would have gone to experts to answer those questions and maybe paid for it, now everything can be done by you in matter of few minutes or so. Yeah. So those are the things. The AI tools that you think you know. So how many tools do you know? Which ones are the popular ones that come to your mind the moment I talk about AI tools? Centra, ChatGPT, okay. Gemini, okay. Yeah, okay. Uh, any other, any design base where you could design something? Canva, hack it. So again, for all the things that you need, there are free tools that are available. There are many paid tools as well. But for the moment, I would suggest let's experiment with the free ones now. And then once we get a bit trained on those things, then we can take it pro. Yeah. Let's return to the presentation. So when I was told that I have to do this for small businesses, we have a lot of projects with large businesses, and then I started to think, okay, in small businesses, what can be the kind of things that you would appreciate? I've been an entrepreneur across my life. I've like started more than 10 ventures, all of them flopped here. But the good thing is that I got a lot of insights from them. So failed ventures are good learning points. Yeah. So I started to think from those perspectives that what are the things that might interest you. So let's start with what is a general understanding, and I know a lot of people would know about it, but just to cover those bases, what is AI? AI stands for artificial intelligence. Now, when we say artificial intelligence, intelligence is not a single point. It's a band. Right now, we are at the very beginning of it. We call it the weak AI. So whatever we are using is weak AI. There's a strong AI that is around 10 years away from us, which we call as AGI, artificial general intelligence. It will reach us, but I suspect around 8 to 10 more years. Yeah. So we are in the era of weak AI. The weak AI requires you to give prompts. It's not autonomous. It cannot do autonomous decision making for you. You have to guide it, and you have to learn how to guide and navigate through it. So if I cover this whole landscape of AI, we could break it down into four kinds of areas. Broadly, machine learning, that is for analytics and pattern recognition, and your generative AI. So the first two parts are part of machine learning. We call it supervised learning models, where we tell the model what is the input and what is the output. We clearly define the categories, the variables, the columns, you may say, if your data, and ask the model to do something about it. Tell us what's happening here. So those are supervised learning models. Then we have unsupervised learning models, where we don't know what are the things that are important for us, but we still want to discover some patterns for customer pattern recognition and so on. So we call those class of models as unsupervised learning models. Then we have LLMs. Yeah, LLMs are large language models which are trained on a large amount of data. They are made available to us from various Perplexity or Gork, ChatGPT, Gemini. Many of them exist. I would say ChatGPT is a pretty stable one and is good with all the results, but free ones are Copilot and Gemini that can help you as well. Then you have got generative AI. Generative AI like DALL-E and Canva. You give it a prompt, it will generate you images, posters, videos. It can generate virtually anything. You can create a whole, if you spend a good amount of time, you can create a whole movie using these free tools with specific characters and so on. So there's a huge possibility that exists out there. And that's kind of changing how you approach, so what you need from AI. So this is a general landscape of AI. This is where we are right now. For your business needs, if you ask me, supervised and unsupervised learning models are the models that will give you data analytics background. You could put in your data and identify customer segments, product segments, uh, any kind of classification, categorization. So I'll just break it up a little bit more in the next slide. So this is the kind of things we can do using machine learning. We could have supervised model where we can have image classification, customer retention analysis. So classification, how things are classified. Then we could have regression models which tell what if this happens, then what happens. So it creates a relationship between your inputs and outputs. Yeah. Then you have unsupervised models where uh, we could create categorization. We tell which customers are most likely to buy from us, who is most likely to spend this much. So unsupervised learning, we don't tell it what the categories are, we just let it identify for yourself. Yeah. So just a landscape, what is happening here. How should we use it and why should we use it? That's the question. A lot of people say, why should we use AI? For me, these are the three key reasons why you should use AI. How do I use AI? If you ask me, I use AI as a super assistant. Whatever I need to do, and if I need to have a cognitive conversation with somebody, I can't find people to have that conversation. I can have that conversation with AI. Multiple times I can keep on asking, okay, what do you think about this? I'm thinking this is the right way to go ahead. What do you think about it? And let the AI tell you, have a meaningful conversation with you. You'll be surprised how good those conversations can be. And maybe one day, if it gave you wrong answers, you leave it for a day. Next day, it will improve. It will be even much better than that. So I use AI as a friend. If you go to my ChatGPT account, you ask AI, who am I? It will actually give you a very clear-cut picture of who I am, what I do, what are my likings, dislikes, because I have a conversation with it. So I try to use it as a super assistant. You could use it as a thought partner. Now, if you are lack of ideas, if you're running lack of ideas for marketing, for promotions, what can you do? You go to AI and ask, okay, I'm thinking in these directions. What would you suggest? And now this becomes a conversation where it will bounce back ideas with you, and you can help like improve those ideas in whatever direction you want. So I would use it also as a thought partner and many a times communication specialist. Most of the emails that I write nowadays, and I think most of you might be doing that as well, I use the AI tools to modify it, to check the grammar, to align the arguments well, to structure it. Previously, I used to spend a lot of time doing that, because if you're writing an email to say a very senior person or very senior VP of a company, you really want the argument to be well structured. And it used to take some time. And I feel those are non-value adding times because that is not actually getting me any benefits. So I use it as a communication specialist, and I'll recommend, if you are not using it, use it. You should not send out any communication to anybody without taking or without checking it across any AI chatbot. Yeah. Yes.
Security for, communicating with some, you know, proprietary information or just information that you would want to keep public.
Yeah. I'm cautious about that because right now we have not got models that are just for me. I can create a model for myself as well and keep it in my machine. Yeah, that's also very easy to do because ChatGPT has a tool that is available that you can do it yourself for which stays in your machine. So, but it will be a restricted model. What I'll suggest is in such circumstances, you can mask the proprietary part of it. Yeah, you can just mask that, use it, and replace it later on. You don't have to tell it everything. If you are, you just have to use a phony or a maybe simulated thing to. So if you're writing to some particular customer, don't put that name in. Say I am writing to this kind of customer. Explain it to it, and explain the chatbot. So prompt engineering is a very important part. If I had another 15-20 minutes, I would have done a prompt engineering for you, how to structure your queries. But the best way is to keep on asking the chatbot what to do. A very interesting tool is that if you ask the chatbot, I want to do this, you let me know what you want. What information should I provide you? And then it will give you a list of information that, okay, why don't you give me this, and this? It will help me improve my answers. Yeah. So to answer your question, if it is proprietary data or information, I would use something proxy to do it. But still, I would use it for the basic argument structuring. Yeah. Yes.
What if you're writing a book or something? Do you feel like you should use it to write your book? Because it does seem like it will reuse information that's just put into it, right?
So when you say you're writing a book, you should have a plot. You should have characters defined. You could use it in bits and pieces. You could use it in entirety. It depends how much you want to use it. So, for example, for character building, I would ask AI to give me great adjectives. I want this kind of person, give me great adjectives about it. Yeah. Or I could say, okay, I would like to introduce this character, that this character is standing by a mountain and this is the first time I'm introducing this character. How would you like to introduce it? See, it draws inspiration from what exists. Means I used to write a lot of creative writing stories and so on. And what I used to do, I used to maintain a writer's book with me where I used to copy all the great character introductions. Now it is drawing on that resource and it is helping you with that. So, of course, people are getting the complete books written by it. I would not say they are not at that level of quality. Your creative thinking, if you could just use it as a tool rather than a complete black box where you put in some and something comes out, I would say that is a good thing. Yeah. So in Hollywood, almost most of the writers nowadays are using um, chat gpt for additional scripts. So I'll share an example. This summer I was in India and I was having a conversation with a director who was making some corporate films, and they were asked to submit 3 scripts to the production house. So what this person did was got 1 script written by the real writers, and he used 2 other scripts from AI. He saved some money. Yeah. They had to give 3 scripts, so that was a part of. If he would have used all the 3 writers, he would have to pay for them. And this is exactly what is happening. The additional ones are being used by AI. So it's happening. The way you use it, and if you want to use it for creative writing, just let me know. I have more tools that I can help you with. Yeah. Any other thing? Yeah. Let's see. So these are the ways where you can use it. The way I understand it, there are two broad areas where AI can help you. It can make your task easier. Make a list of tasks that you want to make easier, and then it can make you be more proficient in doing some tasks. So it can make you better. So list them separately and use it separately in a way that that can help you in both dimensions. So you know you don't want every task that you would like to excel in. You don't want to become the next best you may say speech writer or email writer. That's an easier task. Let AI do it. But maybe you really want to learn a particular skill set or an area, then you can use AI for that as well. So it can make your task easier and it can get you better at doing tasks, but you have to categorize them. I have one more bifurcation that I would like you all to think about whenever you are choosing AI and the solutions associated with it. Yeah. Categorize your tasks in two dimensions. Some tasks don't require an excellence, they just require adequacy. You just have to just finish it. Yeah. Some mean level of, you may say, performance is good enough in those tasks. So that is adequacy, but some tasks require excellence. If I break it up in a 2 by 2 model, so the tasks that require adequacy, and if you would like to make them easier, use free tools to do that. So I would, in this quadrant, adequacy and tasks that you would like to make easier, I would put tools that are freely available. I don't want to invest time in learning it, in buying it. I will put ChatGPT in that place, I would put Canva in that place, and so on. But then there are some tasks that require excellence. You really want to do it perfectly. And you do it. Before AI, you would have definitely done it by hand or by some other means. So you would like to get better at that. In those places, that is the quadrant number 3 at the top, you have to pay and invest into good tools. Yeah. So when you think that you need excellence in a task, you will have to go ahead with a AI tool that is paid, and you spend considerable amount of time learning it and then improving and working on it. So this is a way to think about it. To begin with, I would say, focus on the tasks that just require adequacy. And for a moment, when you gain that proficiency, then go for tasks that require excellence. Yeah. So how you should use it? Now, everyone has a different context here, but if I may give you a brief understanding that in any business context, how should you use it? To begin with, categorize all the tasks that you do. Maybe a day's task, maybe a weekly task, maybe a monthly task. List them all. List all of them. You can use AI tool to do that as well. So you could just tell these are the things that I do. Yeah. For all your operational activities, create a value stream map. Now, what is a value stream map? If you don't know that, just list the task that you do and let AI create a value stream map for you. But value stream map is where you say that the tasks that add value to your portfolio. So there are non-value adding tasks and there are value adding tasks. So value adding tasks are something that you should retain with yourself. And the non-value adding task, you should pass it on to AI. This would be an initial strategy you should focus on. I would take one example to explain it, but if you would share your area of work or business, I would be able to break it up and show you that what are value adding tasks and what are not. Yeah. Let's take a small example from a retail example. Yeah. Suppose you have a small retail business. List down all the daily activities that you do. And I have listed this with, I've not made it. I've got an AI bot to make it. Okay. So I just said that I have a small retail shop. These are the things I do. Can you tell me what are value adding and what are non-value adding? AI gave me this idea. So you open the store, system in the morning, system checks. You greet your first customer, you post product questions, you post product updates on social media, you check register checkout, you lunch break, you restock your shelves, you respond to customer emails, you close your store in the evening. Just a flow of things that you might do in a typical day of a retail outlet. All the blues are value adding services and all the amber are non-value adding services. I would start by putting AI to use in the non-value adding services. And your business could have a very different layout. It could be monthly value adding service, it could be a daily or weekly, anything. You could use for non-value adding services, there are readily available tools. For value adding service, you have to actually be a little bit more careful because AI hallucinates. So AI could give you wrong answers. So you need to be very, very careful with the value adding service because they are the most critical for you. And you have to be absolutely sure that AI is providing you the right answer. So I'll always start with the non-value adding services or non-value adding activities, and I'll pass those to AI. Think about it, you've just hired a person who's new, who's a novice, you just want to pass them something. Yeah. So AI can help you automate a lot of things. It can do data analysis for you. It can do email responses for you. It can do social media processing for you. So AI can do all these things. You can really save on a lot of time. How much to order, when to order, you just put all your last year sales data into AI, it will just tell you your real order point. It will keep on telling you when to order, what to order, how much to order. So you don't have to check those models. They are almost correct because they are based on very standard approaches. So this is how I would approach it. In the current circumstances, I don't expect AI will replace your everything that you do. Yeah. AI won't replace your business, not for the next 10 years or so. But businesses that use AI smartly will be benefited. Think of AI as a cognitive friend who has got some cognitive abilities. So all the things that require people-facing skills, you cannot use AI for that. But all the things that require a little bit of cognitive thinking, which will require your time, you can spare those times and you can get away with those things. So these are my thoughts. Specifically, if you have questions regarding your own process, I'll be more than happy to talk about it. So I think you'll share the presentation with everyone. Yeah. If you want, I can. If you want to click picture, I can just take it back any particular side. Yeah. Yeah. So that's all from my side. I just wanted you to understand what you can allocate to AI and what you cannot or what you should not. So categorize it. If you have specific queries, I'll be more than happy to help with that. Yes.
Thank you for a great presentation. My question is like difference between the weak AI that you mentioned in the beginning of the presentations and the strong one or the general intelligence.
Yeah.
Can you give me like a couple of examples of what the general like, intelligence can do that weak intelligence or AI can't do right now?
Yeah. So let's understand weak AI is all our chatbots, all our Siri, Alexa, these are all weak AI. They are based on predefined algorithms and we have trained it to be there. The general intelligence is expected to be autonomous. It should be able to take autonomous decisions. Uh, at that time, we don't have to tell it what to do. It will know what to do. So that's the difference. We are not very far away from that, but still for it to be available in the public domain as a tool is around 10 years away. So I would recommend there's a small documentary by the name The Thinking Game, if anybody has seen that on Prime Videos. Yeah. Please have a look. You'll understand what. So they are developing general intelligence. They've already developed it. They got a Nobel Prize for a protein folding problem. Last year, I think it was given to them. So please watch this. You will get a lot of your answers. How long you should wait for general intelligence to arrive? If you may ask me, I feel around 8 to 10 years. Yeah. But then it would be that you just have to sit back and let it do.
So is it gonna like manage the store for you and ask you the tasks that it can do manually, and then they're gonna assign tasks to the owner? Like it's gonna kind of reverse the roles, like.
So there are many areas where the things will reverse. The business models will change. Let's understand this. So you are thinking about store. I would say that stores won't exist. Yeah. You're thinking about will they manage customers? I would say it will be a negotiation between two AI agents. So basically, all your groceries, you will never buy them. You will have an AI assistant that will do it for you. You don't have to think about it. Now that AI has to negotiate with all the sellers. So we would be in general intelligence, we would be looking at AI to AI, you may say, negotiations. And that is where it would reach. So things will change drastically, not now, but around 8 to 10 years to come. Yeah. I have a few research going on in this direction, because when we are creating AI, we are creating it as a person. What persona should we give it? What psychological makeup should we give it? Should we make it a rational individual, or should we make it more human? Then if we make it human, which human should we model it on? Yeah. So we are expecting that most of the negotiations in the future between business to business will be dealt by AI. You will not be able to intervene as a human. So suppose you are receiving an order or of hiring people, they will reach out to you. The agent would be an AI agent. Now, how would you negotiate? There'll be a time in between where you as a human would be negotiating with an AI agent. But then soon it will be a time when everybody will have their own AI agents to talk about. Yeah. So weak AI is this era where there are known algorithms and they just do some simple tasks, but they are not autonomous or uh, general intelligence.
I feel
Yes.
like that sounds really scary. I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but I feel like that sounds really scary. So you're saying there won't be stores, so it seems like that's just for people out of jobs or out of positions and things like that. Is that what it looks like, or yeah?
I would not go that area to talk about it here. So I think it's a very contentious issue to talk about. But still, yes, we would require a lot of regulations and more legislation that how AI should be and should not be used. So, but I still suspect that AGI will be there. Nobody will be able to stop it. Have a look at that documentary, and it will answer a lot of your questions. Yeah, it comes from England. That is a Deep Minds company that got this Nobel Prize for this. Yes, there are reasons to be cautious about, but I still feel that there'll be a general like elevation in the quality of life that we have. Yeah, this is I'm positivistic on that. Yeah.
Can you send your AI to on a date to represent you?
Well, existing right now, people have AI dates that they have. Yeah. So if I don't know if you are aware of Replica as an app. How many of you know Replica? No. Okay.
What is that?
Is it a
So
dating app?
it's an app where it creates a
Replica view.
so it creates a date for you which is your own replica, and it is so real that you would eventually get in a relationship with it, and you would not like to escape. Yeah, this is what they claim. I have not had it, but
I don't want to date myself. Movie. Do you remember the movie Her? Was that the name of the?
Yes,
The name
yes.
Of the movie with Joaquin Phoenix, where he's in the relationship with his AI. What's the name of the movie? Am I right?
Yes, but I can share a real incident. So 2 years back, 2021 or Replica, a user was using Replica, and Replica just replicates your own own philosophy. So basically, it bounces back your ideas. So this person went into the Buckingham Palace to kill the Queen, and why? Because his replica girlfriend had asked him to do so. Yeah. So it's the first case where AI was charged with attempt and to murder. So it's a very well known story. If you can check that. So yes, to sending to the date, you might both the people would have two AI agents meeting at a date. Maybe that's a possibility. Yeah, if you wish to. But these are all fancy ideas. Let's think in a business perspective. I feel negotiation would move to AI.
So one of the things that when I hear all this and it sounds super helpful, one thing is it does also sound slightly overwhelming in the sense of I do have so many aspects that I think about: my website, my CRM, my marketing. And so in a sense though, when you're doing this, are you juggling all of the different AI systems in all of those different things? And is there a way to use something to help you kind of manage that then? Like, is ChatGPT then a good way to say, all right, I have all these things now. Can you help me manage, like, in the sense of understanding, okay, I need to use my Shopify AI for certain tasks. Like, Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, you would like to have a central connected AI that could integrate all your AI applications.
Yeah, or at least help guide me when I'm doing.
In a small scenario, it is not available. So you don't have something like that currently available for a small business setting. But yes, these things do exist because it's ultimately at the end of the day, it's a data related integration. So you could integrate all the data outlets from those with any of the systems. But currently, in your setting, I would say you'll have to take the data out and use it to interpret it. That's why I put that non-value adding, how to, yeah, so how can you decide what and what not to do? Yeah. Yes.
In this case, if you build like dependency on an AI and you later on decide to fire that AI and replace it with another one, is there any way to save the information from the previous AI so that the next one can pick it up from there?
So currently, you cannot migrate from one model to other, your learnings. Currently, that's not available until you design your own AI. So I would say no, not at this moment. Yeah, but ideally, yes, you should be able to migrate your models. But you can do one thing before migration. You could say that, okay, give me all the algorithms and all the models that you have created as an output, and then use it as an input into the other AI that I'm shifting from this. So it's a little bit tedious, but it can be done theoretically. Yeah. I think for specific things, please feel free to reach out to me. And my email ID is here. And anything that I have a lot of things that I can talk about, yet it's a very small window to do so. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'll ask Professor Murgi to continue. Yeah, thank you.
I come to AI from a very different place. My training is as an economist, and I tend to be cautious. So my talk is sort of going to, I think, induce a little caution. Though on the whole, I'm also positive about AI. Um, he mentioned a couple of things in his talk about prompt engineering, saying sort of how you pose a question affects the kind of answer that you get. The minute you go beyond something very simple like using AI to generate an email, say with Chat GPT or whatever else, that becomes very important. See, we also need to be cognizant of one thing. Years ago, we used our brains for mental maths. When I was in school in Bombay in the 1960s, I went to a Catholic school, and the Jesuits rapped my knuckles if I sort of got my multiplication tables wrong or I got whacked on the palm. So we used to have 20 points for mental arithmetic as opposed to other arithmetic. The last 20 years or 30 years or maybe even 40 years, people have calculators, and so that skill has atrophied. I mean, if I ask my undergraduate classmates, why do you open your calculator for that? No, but this is how I've always done it. We want to make sure that the use of AI does not atrophy some cognitive ability. And it can happen in fairly subtle ways. So, what I'm hoping to do in the few minutes that I have here is to show you a couple of examples so that you never forget that this is a possibility. I'm not saying it has to happen, but this risk of losing some ability because you rely entirely on AI can happen. Uh, in order to prepare for today, I had a conversation with three people who I felt used AI a lot more than me. All three of them came up with some version of this first bullet point. The right attitude to have towards AI is that it is like an eager intern who's eager to help, but sometimes lies to you because he's just trying to say, I know everything. And so you have to be careful, you have to supervise it, you have to check it. Okay? And AI is definitely useful, but to go beyond the simplest applications involves, partly as he already has mentioned, investment, costs, learning from trial and error. I mean, if there's one phrase you want to sort of keep in your mind, it is learning from trial and error. Just do not assume that what you're getting some magic out of it, even if it is a well-studied standard application. Then finally, this is a question that came up in our conversation. This guy that is one of the three people I spoke to, works for Hewlett Packard, which is 140,000 people. And he said the one thing you want to ask small business people is how can they learn from each other? And said, so this is where I will have some questions for you to sort of help me learn about, what the challenges are. Okay, these are sort of a variety of standard applications. I think he can tell you a lot more. And every week there seems to be, a new tool. And I'll skip. I mean, some of these are free, some of these are paid, and some of these have different versions. Okay. AI for sure is a cost. The estimates some people were giving me was that suppose you have enterprise Microsoft, workspace or Google Workspace with you, the added cost of adding Copilot or of adding Gemini, could, depending on the size of the business and the sort of how much you're already spending for it, could be anywhere from 30 to 40%. So it is not an insignificant cost. ChatGPT is free and a lot of tools are free, but the minute you get beyond the simplest, there is a cost, and you want to ask yourself, am I getting value for this additional expenditure? Um, what are some examples where people have found it dramatically useful? I mean, he's given you a bunch of examples. I'll give you two, three more. He spoke about categorizing customers and doing that. If you have a lot of contracts, sort of categorizing that and sort of monitoring how you update that, that is a useful thing. Then one person mentioned that while his day job was at some large firm, he runs a not-for-profit. And it started off very informally among friends. Then at some point, they decided to register under Section 503 or whatever that is, and apply for a tax exemption and all of that. The government form that had to be filled up had some 50 sections. So the guys who were sitting around one Saturday afternoon said, you work on 10, you work on 10, and between the five of us, we'll work on all 50. And if we meet every Saturday afternoon in the course of a month, we'll be ready to submit this application. This was a little before that ChatGPT became very public about 2 years back. One of these five had access to OpenAI even before that big ChatGPT public announcement was made. And he said, let me just try this. And he fed the government form, and it came up, it asked for some data. They were able to feed it some data, and within 30 minutes, they had the draft of a filled out form. Then they were able to use their time to sit checking. And he said, believe it or not, it was 95% correct. So which meant that that very afternoon, they were able to submit the application. They didn't have to wait a month for it. Then the Hewlett Packard guy also told me that there was one task which involved classifying contracts and sort of creating an inventory of everything. He said if we had to do it manually, it would have taken us at least
500 man hours. And within my group, to generate 500 man hours, a little bit each day, each week, it might have taken us a month. But by giving it to AI, so in the first afternoon, we had a first pass. We discovered two obvious errors, but a lot of things were correct. And the whole thing got done very quickly. So if most people can recall some application that they're very impressed with. In what I have done in class, the thing that's impressed me the most was analyzing securities analyst reports. I teach my accounting students that stuff besides accounting information is also important. So you have to have operating information, non-financial information, information not just provided by firms, but also provided by markets and third parties like analysts. Till recently, I would have taken one report, gone over a section of it and said, this I like, this is why I like it. This I don't like, this is why I don't like it. But if I had time, I might have done a second report. Now I can take 200 reports and come up with a quick summary. Then you can decide which report you want to spend more time on, which is a lot more useful. That is an application we could not have dreamt of doing without AI. So clerical savings are available even with today's AI. But anything beyond simple clerical work, I think the jury is still out. And I'm going to show you examples where you have to be very careful. Okay. How do I? What did you do? Yeah, we can open the other one also. The other one also? Yeah. No, what did you do? Do you want to open the links or? Well, okay, I'll do this first. Okay. I was in MBA in the late 70s, early 80s. There used to be a very popular 300-page case, marketing case, which dealt with competition between Procter and Gamble and Colgate and Unilever and others. And this example has been culled from that. You can look at historical sales data and advertising data. And because I didn't want to go through the original case, that would take far too long, I generated random numbers. Okay. Now, it so turns out that the advertising expense is about 3% of the sales. Why? Because at that time, among these companies like Procter and Gamble and Unilever and the others, they looked at the industry ratio and they treated that as a norm that had to be met. Now, if you ask AI to analyze this, say, tell me if advertising is useful. Okay? Can we go to the other? Yeah. Yes, yes. It is telling you the correlation is almost perfect. Correlation is 1. That means perfect. But why? Because the advertising choice is made based on current period sales. But when you ask, is advertising important? That is not what you mean. What you mean is, will today's advertising help drive future sales? Now, if you don't say anything and you just give it, data, and it will tell you, yes, there seems to be a very strong relationship between advertising and sales. But that correlation is not causation. Now, it requires some human intelligence to know that correlation is not causation. So then we can go ahead and uh, this. Now, I was impressed that this version actually gave me the warning. It said, while the analysis shows a strong association, it does not prove causation. Other factors may be at play, or the data may not represent typical market conditions. Then I told you the above answer is meaningless. It does not recognize that advertising today will impact sales only tomorrow or later. Reanalyze the data, assuming that advertising is only future impacts. Now, I don't know what I did in coming up with these random numbers, but it turns out that even when it looks at the lag relationship, today's advertising on tomorrow's sales, in this data set, the correlation is still 1. Now it's using stronger language, unrealistic perfection. In my PhD advisor, who was a mad Greek fellow, would say, if you get an R squared of 1, you'll never get your PhD. It's just too good to be true. And then it sort of gives you some, a little guidance. How can the model be improved to better reflect real world advertising effects? Incorporate lagged effects, incorporate decayed effects. Then it would, I think, also sort of talk about proportion, competitive share modeling, sort of how influential your advertising is may depend in part of how many other people are advertising. So, which means, you cannot just sort of leave it to AI. You have to iterate. You ask it something, come back, spend some time thinking about it. Was that reasonable? And then go back and ask it something more. Now, this whole business about prompt engineering, which is instead of coding, sort of the phrase is prompt engineering, is still, it's not science, it's not even art, it is a lot of trial and error. Okay, can we go back to the, yeah. Yeah. So intelligence is needed in asking questions, reviewing the answers, and deciding how to ask the next question. You cannot stop thinking. Now, this is where AI is a double-edged sword. I will now show you another example that of a case that I use both in my undergraduate class and in my graduate class, and you will get a better idea of what the problem is. How AI's answers can be so seductive that you don't want to do anything else. Oh, see, the case is a simple case. Okay, it involves accounting, but I'll tell you what it's about. This is a company that's bought a building. The building comes with a roof and it comes with HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, all of that. Okay? And the simple accounting question these guys have to deal with is they know the roof will need replacement in 15 years, that the HVAC system is going to need replacement in 10 years, and they propose a particular treatment, namely to charge maintenance expense and correspondingly to record an obligation to make a provision for maintenance. So, on the one hand, they're recognizing a maintenance liability. On the other hand, they're recognizing a maintenance charge because each year, so that as the roof has to be replaced, they would have recorded that all of that the old roof was used up. Now, can we go to ChatGPT's? Okay, it will be the link from the. No, the next slide. Here it is. Here it is. Okay, no, not to worry. Okay, so I've given it the prompt here was the case and the question that came with the case. Okay? This is what my undergraduate students would do. It's the easiest thing to do. Just sort of give that to tell ChatGPT, come on, tell me. Now, you have to understand some background for this. The students who come to me in that course are students who've had 5 or 6 accounting courses already. Okay? In the first accounting course, you just learn sort of very simple things. You don't even know where the rules come from. By the time they get to the third or fourth course, they realize that accounting standards are set by the Financial Accounting Standards Board, which is a very political body, depending on whether it's dominated by Democrats or Republicans or what have you. All kinds of strange things can happen with the rules, and it can be more painful than looking at the income tax code. And to get before AI, the problem used to be to get them to look up the original standards and find out the correct reference. That used to be very difficult. And I have to be fair, it's not just difficult for my undergraduates and graduate students, it's very difficult for practicing CPAs. I have had practicing CPAs tell me that one of the most painful things they do in their work is look up the standards to see which standard supports a particular treatment. And so they would tell me, let your guys do something, show some familiarity. It'll help them when they're sitting in the interview. And that has happened. I've had students tell me that simply because they've looked at the Financial Accounting Standards Board codification and was able to say something intelligent for 2 minutes, he got the job. With the AI, getting them, okay, then we went to a stage where from books we went to digital records. The statements were now available digitally, which was a bit easier. So they were not so upset with me when I made them do that. But with ChatGPT, see, it comes out, it even gives you a standard reference. Okay, this is accounting standard codification. And that. So then they can go to the codification site and check that. This is so much easier. So now it is telling you, now look at what it says. It can be categorically wrong, even as some parts can be categorically right. So here it starts off by saying, occasional should not recognize maintenance expenses and a related liability for future costs that have not yet been incurred. Okay, you'll have to replace the roof only 15 years from now. You have to replace HVAC only 10 years from now. And therefore, it argues that you should not recognize a liability now, because who are you liable to? There is no particular person that you're liable to now. When you sign a contract for a new roof, then you're liable to pay the roofer. When you sign a contract for the new HVAC system, you're liable to that HVAC contractor. So the argument here is, you are not at this point liable to anyone, and therefore, according to this standard 450, 20, 25, 2, that's all wrong. So the treatment suggested in the case, this I got either with both with ChatGPT and with Perplexity. said, you should not do it. Now, once you see this and it's written in beautiful prose, and you go back and you do some checking, you check that this standard in fact exists. Because sometimes these AI things will make up their own numbers. Okay, they've made up legal references. Okay? And so once you find that this thing exists, then it sort of seems to follow logically. But all of my students should know that there are many cases where even if you do not have liability to a particular person, we recognize the liability. For example, it is the most common occurrence is for warranties. Products are sold with a warranty. Now, how does the seller of the product treat that? The seller of the product does not know for sure that the product will fail and the business will become liable. But there is a possibility, and from past records, they might form an estimate. That 5% of the time something will go wrong, or 10% of the time something will go wrong, and they need to make a provision. And in these cases, right from their first accounting costs, they know that you recognize a warranty expense and you record a warranty related obligation, even though you are not liable to any particular person till something actually fails. So, while this rule says this, there is another rule which tells you in the case of contingencies, if something can be estimated fairly well, then go ahead and record the liability. Now, once you see this written in beautiful prose, you say, I'm happy, and you go away. You do not ask it the second question. Can you go back to, yeah, your presentation, the last link? No, the next slide. This one. Yeah, more complete. This. So ChatGPT was not wrong. It offered a treatment which is one valid treatment. If you can separate the cost of the roof and the cost of HVAC from the cost of the building, you can do what it suggests, which was recorded. So ChatGPT's response offered a different accounting treatment. It sort of assumed that the roof and HVAC can be made distinct from the building, and for that treatment, that is one valid way of doing it. But it made errors by claiming that you cannot do anything else. Now, if you claims no liability should be recorded because no present obligation exists, but there are so many cases for which it is routine. And so more generally, there should be a charge, and so there would be at least two kinds of treatment that are valid. Now, this is the sort of thing that you might miss. But believe me, what exists in AI today is a huge improvement to what existed even 1 year ago. But you have to check, you have to verify. See, and when we had a chat in his office a couple of days back, he used the phrase sort of a cognitive decline. That is, AI can sort of induce cognitive decline. Now, some of this cognitive decline is like saying, use it or lose it. You don't do mental arithmetic, then you lose the ability to do it and you have to use a calculator. But some of it is because, its initial response seems so good that it induces complacency and you do not ask questions. Now, let me sort of make a rather big detour. It is connected to AI, and I'll tell you why. But I come from South India. My mother tongue is Tamil. Tamil grandmothers traditionally, when they are employed to babysit to take care of their grandchildren, they do things that are common in lots of cultures, sing songs, sing lullabies, tell stories, all of that. But there is also a tradition of asking some questions. Okay? I'll give you an example of one question. Believe me, it has connections to all of this. But it's an important question and it will help you remember what I'm going to say for a long time. If your neighbor's hen lays an egg in your yard, to whom does the egg belong? You can give this to ChatGPT, Perplexity, AI, and it will give you sort of answers like, depending on the legal regime, somewhere it might be finders, keepers, losers, weepers. Somewhere else, they might say whoever owns the hen owns the egg. But the grandmother is not interested in the answer. See, this is typically not done with, say, a child that is 4 or 5 years old. That would be too big. Okay, that kid would be going to school and it won't be done with a 1-year-old. That kid is still learning its first words and so. But the 2-year-old might know what a hen is, know what an egg is, neighbor's house there, our house here, some rudimentary concepts. And the grandmother is not looking for the right answer. It is just to hit the kid with some ideas, because apparently psychologists say that between the age of 2 and 3 is when the brain develops the most. So you're trying to fire the neurons. So when you use AI, you want to make sure it's not putting your neurons to sleep, but that it's waking up your neurons. It's firing them. Yeah. Okay, now I'll quickly run through some costs, risks, and dangers, some of which is already mentioned, and others sort of are probably obvious. AI systems can, ask for sensitive data. You have to be careful, which means, whether it is free AI or purchased AI, you do want to check your agreements before you just click on I agree, I agree, I agree. So you need to be watchful. Then sometimes, if you're not very careful, this persona that he was talking about, tone of voice that emerges might not reflect you. And so there are firms that have found that they need to correct that. Then there are obvious financial and legal risks. The workforce impact, what he said about firms not being defeated by AI, but rather being defeated by other firms that use AI in a very smart way. I've heard something similar from a UW faculty forum that I attend once a month related to AI. They would say you won't lose your job to AI, but you lose your job to somebody who's using AI better than you. But the point is, it takes away drudgery. It enables you to sort of focus on the more intellectual aspects of the job. But you must be prepared for the more intellectual aspects of the job. You must be willing to make that intellectual effort. So in that case, it gave you one nice initial answer, but it ignored other possibilities. So you have to keep asking. And not all of this requires substantial expertise. Like for this accounting case, you don't need to be a professor. You don't need to have a PhD. My accounting students have all seen warranties right from their first course. They should have known. And there are students in that class who are very bright, who will do very well. they'll be a credit to themselves and to the school. But this response was so nice. So you're asking us to not believe this. Okay. The interpretability example that I got from The Economist was that chess example. That if you're not very careful, that is, AI will try and win the chess game, not, legally, but by just hacking the other thing. And this was an example of hallucination. And that is when I realized you'd been using a technical term throughout.
My apologies.
Okay. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about regulation because I think we should all, as responsible citizens, become more aware and at some point start asking more questions. So far, we have not been hit with too much in the US and certainly not in Washington. But in California, under the California Consumer Privacy Act, they've started focusing a lot on what they call personal information and how that is used, which is actually a lot less strict than what the European Union does with its AI Act. There, even if you do not use personal information, but you use some other information to manipulate someone, that is prohibited. Now, at some point, it's going to lead to sort of, cases where someone will say, I was only trying to tell the customer, what is good for the customer. You can't call that manipulation. That is providing information. So, what is information? What is misinformation? What is manipulation? What is not? All of that stuff will become bigger and bigger issues. And in these early days of AI, we probably should make it a habit to think about that ourselves. And this is not just for the tech majors, okay? It is for all of us. It is because all of us will be paying the costs. I mean, Google takes all of our data. It doesn't give us even an ice cream or a glass of beer for that. Okay, there is another piece of legislation in Europe called GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. They don't use the phrase personal information like in California. They use the phrase personal data everywhere. They focus a lot on privacy rights. Some of those, their consideration is sort of common sense. Consent should be informed consent. Data minimization. That is, you should ask for only the data that you need, not try and vacuum a whole lot of other stuff. And you need to be transparent about not just what it is being used for, but who has access to it and for what purpose. So they're trying to be more and more careful. Now, the tradition with regulation in this country has been sort of a little more of let the buyer beware. And I'm very scared that till there is a major disaster, we won't see much movement. But I think it is good to keep abreast of what is happening in Europe so that at least we will know what questions to ask. Okay. Then there are some general guidelines regarding keeping information confidential. See, I for a long time didn't realize that even the queries that you give are incorporated in databases and are part of this large learning model. So if you keep asking, a lot of questions about something, it is using that to develop, your persona. Now, some of this we've been doing before, and it's not all bad. For example, an epidemiologist neighbor of mine in New Jersey used to tell me that Google searches for the flu were a much better predictor or a much better indicator for how the flu was spreading than CDC's data. CDC's data was typically a week or two behind Google through searches that you could get from Google Trends or something. So there could be good uses, but we need to be careful. And typically, many of these paid platforms, they come with privacy controls. They're not always opt-in. Most of them are opt-out. So by default, you're in, and you have to sort of actively opt out. I think Gemini has an opt-out, and if I'm not mistaken, forgetting something else that also is opt-out. Then, in answer to your question, he said, you could anonymize. Sometimes sort of don't use your any person's actual name. You try and mask the data in some way. That's a way that's available. Then sometimes you can deploy inside sort of internal, firm specific clouds. That technology he knows a lot more about. Uh, but ultimately, when in doubt, for now, leave it out. Okay. I want to come back and talk about the most important things from today. The cost of anything beyond the simplest AI applications lies in the trial and error needed, which means we have to be willing to make the effort to ask questions. If you go with just one initial prompt and you sit back and say, I've got something that's reasonable, that's okay, that's not good enough. AI allows us to focus on the less drudgery filled aspects, but we must be willing to make the effort to pursue those non drudgery filled aspects well. So you might ask the initial question in several different ways in new threads, or in the same thread, you might ask several follow up questions, several finer questions. Like when we look at analyst reports, I told you we analyze 200 reports at one go. So, what are we really interested in? Is there variation in what these analysts say? Has the same analyst changed his opinion over time? So, you can refine your question and get more information. And with all that, you have to verify. If you do not verify, there is a risk. It is like generating bad legal references. Um, Now, the cost of learning from trial and error could be reduced if people could share their experience. Now, this is where I'm curious about whether this is a significantly workable idea. See, if you have 5 restaurants all in Mercer Island competing with each other, it's sort of a bit hard to get them to share all their catering requests or this or something, because you're competing. But if someone is using AI for HR, eh, and that is sort of not a viciously competitive thing, and it is possible that people could share. So I'm very curious. Do you think there is some possibility, say in an institution like the Chamber of Commerce, for people to share each other's experiences? Because that way you can bring down the cost of trial and error. I mean, it could be as simple as maintaining a website where different people post their experiences, and that is collected. Now, in class, what I do to encourage my students to use better prompts with cases, I have a shared Google Drive folder in which each group has to submit not just its case report, but they have to submit the prompts that they used, so that in the course of the quarter, students would have seen a variety of different prompts. Now, we have historically fairly serious examples of this kind of sharing has happened. The credit bureaus collect credit account information from lots of different firms. So that has worked. Then there are trade associations that have aggregated trade data. Though some of these work on a particular principle, they will give the aggregate data only to those who contribute to the aggregate. So in the automobile industry, every automobile manufacturer has access to industry aggregates, but is under an obligation to submit his firm's data to that aggregate. There are some examples where in the trade association, regardless of whether or not you contribute data, you get data. Do you think there is a possibility of minimizing your individual, trial and error by this kind of shared experience? That was the last thought I had. Please, you have to fire your neurons. You should not allow AI to make you lazy. AI should not become a lullaby. It should not do what calculators have done to our ability to do simple calculations. It should free us for better tasks.